right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into this whole concept of letting go.
Yeah, we're really excited about this one.
But, to really grasp it, to get to the nitty-gritty, we got to go straight to the source material, right?
Yeah, so
And that source today is going to be Chapter 11, titled Acceptance, from David R. Hawkins' book, Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender.
So we're diving into acceptance today.
We are diving deep into acceptance. And the goal, the mission here is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, what is it we're looking to understand today?
We're going to try to really figure out, what does this state of acceptance actually mean, in a real way, not just like a textbook definition.
Right, exactly.
And how can that actually lead to, more inner peace, more emotional freedom for the listener, for all of us, really?
Well, and what's really fascinating about this chapter in particular is how Hawkins goes into incredible detail about the lived experience of acceptance. He really fleshes out what it feels like to be in that state, how it changes our perspective and our relationships.
Yeah, and ultimately what becomes possible when we actually embody that state.
What new things open up to us.
Exactly. So that's what we really want to break down today.
Pull out those nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, give you those key insights so you can start to see how this might apply in your own life, in your own relationships, and just your overall sense of well-being.
Right, because it's not just theoretical, it's about practical application.
Totally. So let's get right into it, right into the feeling of it.
Dive into the experience.
Yeah, because the chapter doesn't just give us a dry academic definition of acceptance. It actually really emphasizes what it feels like to be in that state. So what are those core feelings that come up when we're talking about acceptance?
Well, I think the most fundamental feeling at the very heart of acceptance is this profound sense of harmony. Things just feel like they're in this natural flow.
Right, like a sense of ease.
Exactly. And along with that, there's this very deep-seated feeling of security, like a knowingness that, as Hawkins puts it, I'm okay, you're okay, and it's okay.
That's powerful. It's like a deep sense of belonging.
Yes, of being connected.
Not just to others, but to yourself.
Exactly, to life itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a sense of inner completeness.
Wholeness.
Yeah, you're enough just as you are.
Absolutely. And that's a really important distinction to make because acceptance isn't about resignation.
Right, it's not passive.
No, it's not about giving up or giving in. It's about this fundamental shift in how we relate to ourselves, to the world around us.
It's very active, actually, when you think about it.
It is. And yeah, the text also talks about this feeling of love and understanding that emerges with acceptance.
Yes. And how does that fit into this whole picture?
Well, it's so central because it highlights the interconnectedness of everything. It's not just about your internal state. It's about how that state influences how you experience others.
You start to see the world differently.
Exactly. And this isn't just a vague sense of connection. There's a genuine feeling of caring and warmth that arises naturally. And it's intertwined with a solid sense of your own value.
Yeah, like a deep self-worth.
Right. You're not looking for validation externally because you already feel whole and complete within yourself.
That makes a lot of sense. And then from that secure place, you can actually be more open and giving in your interactions with others.
Precisely. It allows you to be, as Hawkins so eloquently puts it, soft, mellow, and natural.
I love that. And to experience a real sense of joy and relaxation.
To be truly in tune with yourself and with life.
Yes, in tune is such a perfect way to describe it. It's like all that internal resistance we often carry around just melts away.
It really does.
And the foundation for all of this, according to the book, is simply this radical acceptance of who we are.
Right, to the key.
It's that core feeling. It's all right just to be ourselves.
And from that solid base of self-acceptance, our whole perspective starts to expand outwards.
Yeah, it ripples out in all directions.
It does. And one of the most profound shifts is the recognition that everything is perfect as it is.
Now, that's a big one.
It is a big one.
Especially when, we look around and see so much pain, injustice in the world.
Right.
How do we reconcile that with this idea of everything being perfect? Is it about just ignoring the negative stuff?
Not at all. It's about recognizing the inherent order, the unfolding process of life itself. It's about understanding that even amidst the apparent chaos and suffering, there's a deeper wisdom at play.
Okay.
And from this perspective, compassion arises naturally, not as something we force, but as a genuine response to the interconnectedness of all things.
So it's not about condoning the negative, but about seeing a bigger picture.
Exactly. Seeing that everything is part of a larger process of growth and evolution.
And that naturally leads to a deeper sense of compassion.
Absolutely. There's this automatic inclination to be nurturing and supportive without any feeling of having to sacrifice ourselves.
So it's not about becoming a martyr or feeling obligated to fix everything.
No. It's about recognizing that everyone is on their own journey, and we can offer support from a place of understanding and compassion.
So, to be clear, acceptance isn't about passivity or ignoring the problems of the world.
It's not.
It's actually about having a much clearer, more compassionate perspective.
Right, from which we can actually act more effectively and authentically.
Exactly. And this compassion, this willingness to help, it comes from a place of inner security, doesn't it?
Absolutely. When you feel secure within yourself, when you have a sense of inner abundance, generosity flows effortlessly.
It's not a chore, it's just natural.
Right. The text highlights this beautifully with the idea of giving without needing anything in return, without keeping score in our relationships. And that's a huge contrast to how we often operate, isn't it? With that underlying need for validation, for reciprocity.
Yeah, like we're constantly keeping track of who owes who what.
Exactly. And acceptance allows us to release that neediness.
So it's a completely different way of relating to others.
It is. Instead of focusing on the flaws in others, we become more understanding.
More forgiving.
Yes. The book even talks about willingly overlooking limitations in others.
Because we recognize that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have.
That's such a key insight. Hawkins says that everyone is actually doing the best they can with what they have at the moment.
And that takes the pressure off, both for ourselves and for others.
It does. We stop expecting perfection and start appreciating effort.
And this ties into this idea that life itself is evolving towards a state of perfection, right?
Absolutely. It's this grand unfolding, aligning with these fundamental laws of the universe and consciousness.
So it's not about being perfect right now, but about being on the path.
Exactly. Trusting the process.
Okay, that's a really helpful way to look at it. And now I want to get into the whole concept of love as it relates to acceptance.
Yeah, this is a really important distinction that Hawkins makes.
Because the book makes a very clear distinction between the love that comes from acceptance and the love that stems from desire, right?
Right, so what's the key difference there?
That's what I want to unpack because it's such a crucial point.
Well, what's so insightful is how Hawkins describes love and acceptance as this stable, permanent state that originates entirely from within ourselves.
It's not dependent on anyone or anything outside of us.
Exactly. It's not something we need to acquire or earn or even deserve.
It's just there.
It is, and it's always available to us.
Whereas the feeling of, being in love that often accompanies desire is often about seeking love and happiness externally.
Right, as if it's something we lack.
And that we need to get from someone or something outside of ourselves.
Exactly. And that can lead to a lot of suffering because we're constantly searching for something that's already within us.
So acceptance shifts the focus from seeking love to radiating lovingness.
It does. It's about recognizing that we are love at our core.
So as we let go of those internal blocks, the negative feelings, the limiting beliefs.
Yes, the things that prevent us from experiencing our true nature.
Our natural capacity for love just starts to shine through.
Precisely. As we surrender those obstacles, our inherent loving nature, what Hawkins calls our true inner essence or true self, begins to emerge spontaneously.
It's like removing the layers that are covering up our true selves.
It is. And Hawkins connects this with the wisdom of many great spiritual teachers.
Yeah, like the idea that there's this deeper aspect of ourselves.
This true self that transcends the ego.
And that the ego is really just a collection of those negative feelings, programs, and thoughts.
Exactly. And the fundamental aim of this true self is to move beyond those limitations.
To transcend the ego.
And acceptance acts as a vital gateway on that journey.
It allows us to move towards those higher states of consciousness.
Like love and profound peace.
And those states become more accessible the deeper we go into acceptance.
Absolutely. Hawkins even notes that for those who are actively letting go, this inner aspiration to dwell in unconditional love and imperturbable peace gradually becomes the most important goal in life.
It supersedes everything else.
It does. It becomes the driving force.
The internal compass has been recalibrated.
Exactly. It's no longer about chasing external achievements or possessions.
It's about this inner transformation.
It's about becoming the fullest expression of our true selves.
So it's not just about how we see ourselves, but also about how we perceive others.
That's another profound shift that occurs with acceptance.
Tell me more about that. What changes in how we see other people?
Well, we begin to see beyond those external behaviors, the things that we might normally judge or criticize.
Yeah, we see past the surface.
And we become aware of the fundamental innocence that lies beneath the fear-driven struggles we observe in others.
It's like seeing the scared child within.
Exactly. And, crucially, we start to recognize that same innocence within ourselves.
Right, that's so important. It's like we can't truly see it in others until we see it in ourselves.
Right. Hawkins echoes the wisdom of many traditions that attribute negativity to a form of blindness,
Like a lack of awareness.
a kind of unconsciousness.
Mm.
So seeing the good in others, even when they're struggling, helps us see the good in ourselves.
It breaks down judgment and fosters connection.
It does. We start to realize that our own past actions, even the ones we regret, were based on the best understanding we had at the time.
We were doing the best we could with what we knew.
Exactly. As Hawkins says, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
I love that. It's so human, so relatable.
It is. And it allows us to extend that same understanding and compassion to others.
We can look beyond their surface imperfections and recognize the innocent child within.
And that's incredibly liberating, isn't it? To release that constant judgment both of ourselves and others.
It is. It's like a huge weight lifted.
And it leads to a much deeper sense of connection.
Because we're not seeing each other as separate, flawed individuals.
We're seeing the shared humanity.
Your shared innocence.
Yes. And we're starting to understand that even in actions that might seem rash or even terrible, there's often a fundamental fear at play.
Like a frightened animal that just doesn't know any better.
Reacting out of distress rather than inherent malice.
That's such a powerful image. It really fosters compassion, even in challenging situations.
It does. And this compassion is what opens the door to genuine forgiveness.
Forgiveness of ourselves and of others.
Exactly. Hawkins explicitly states that in acceptance, it becomes possible to truly forgive our past and the past actions of others.
So those old resentments can finally heal.
They can. And he even suggests that we could potentially see a hidden gift or a deeper karmic significance in past events that we held resentment towards.
It's like finding the meaning in the suffering.
Right. And that can provide a new healing context.
Like maybe that difficult breakup wasn't a failure, but a necessary step on the path to something better.
Exactly. It's like rewriting the story of our past with a more compassionate understanding.
So as this process of acceptance deepens, the focus naturally starts to shift towards the future with a greater sense of peace, right?
Absolutely. Hawkins describes a growing feeling of security about what lies ahead.
We're no longer so afraid of the unknown.
No, because we trust that whatever happens, we'll be able to handle it from a place of acceptance and wisdom.
And this allows us to move towards experiencing more love and peace in our lives.
It does. Reason and logic become valuable tools to help us realize that potential.
Instead of being constantly overshadowed by fear or negativity.
Right. And what's interesting is the shift in how we approach morality and judgment.
Yeah, that black and white thinking starts to fade.
It does.
Yeah.
The intense preoccupation with labeling things as strictly good or bad diminishes.
So what takes its place? What becomes the new focus?
It becomes much more practical. It shifts towards recognizing what actually works in life and what doesn't.
What leads to well-being and what causes suffering?
Exactly. It becomes easier to discern between destructive and optimal actions without needing to apply harsh moralistic labels.
Like evil.
Yes. And a significant consequence of this shift is the fading away of guilt.
The guilt we project onto others and the guilt we inflict upon ourselves.
Both. We let go of that inner critic, the inner guilt-monger, as Hawkins calls it.
Which really brings that saying, judge not, lest you be judged, into a whole new light, doesn't it?
It does. It's about recognizing that judging others is ultimately a reflection of our own inner judgment.
And that by releasing judgment, we free ourselves.
Exactly. And this acceptance extends to our physical selves as well.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it allows us to appreciate our physicality without either a sense of moralistic aversion or, on the other hand, an unhealthy obsession with compulsive self-gratification.
We find a balance.
Right. We accept our bodies as they are, without judgment or shame.
And we can enjoy physical pleasures without getting attached to them.
Exactly. And we also develop a greater understanding that other people, even when their views differ significantly from our own, have arrived at their current understanding of life through a process that makes sense to them.
We can disagree without demonizing each other.
Absolutely. We can see their perspective even if we don't share it.
And that allows us to truly fulfill that principle of loving our neighbor as ourselves.
It does, not as a forced duty, but as a natural consequence of letting go of our own internal resistance.
It's like love becomes the default state.
It does. And Hawkins describes this deeper level of acceptance as being fundamentally characterized by selflessness and a desire to be of service.
So it's not about denying our own needs, but about a natural outpouring of generosity.
Exactly. It results from surrendering those negative emotions and limiting beliefs that create the illusion of a separate, small self.
We realize that we're all connected.
Yes, and that by helping others, we're ultimately helping ourselves.
So by letting go of that negativity, the inherent harmony and peace of our greater self begin to emerge.
And they start to guide our actions.
We're no longer driven by fear and scarcity.
No, we're acting from a place of love and abundance.
And that leads to greater creativity, inspiration, and intuition.
It does, because those old negative patterns are no longer clouding our awareness.
We're more in tune with our inner wisdom.
Right, and there's this deep underlying certainty that our own essential needs will be met.
So we can focus on giving to others.
Exactly. Our attention and energy naturally flow towards the well-being and happiness of others.
It's a profound shift in focus, moving from a sense of lack to a feeling of abundance.
It is, and it changes the whole dynamic of our relationship.
Because we're not needy or dependent on others to fulfill us.
Right. We can relate from a place of wholeness and independence.
And that allows for much healthier, more fulfilling connections.
It does. Minor imperfections become easier to overlook, and there's a decrease in our preoccupation with constant doing.
We can just be.
Exactly. The emphasis shifts towards the quality of our inner beingness, our inherent capacity for caring and loving presence.
It sounds like a much more peaceful and joyful way to live.
It is. It's about aligning with the natural flow of life.
But the text does acknowledge that negative feelings might still arise from time to time.
That's true. We're human after all.
But how do we handle those feelings when they come up?
Well, the key is that they tend to be less frequent and less intense.
And when they do arise, we can meet them with greater understanding and compassion.
Exactly. We're not so easily swept away by them.
We have more tools to work with.
Yes. And daily activities become almost effortless, flowing naturally without the internal resistance we might have experienced before.
It's like we're operating from a higher level of consciousness.
We are. And a really key aspect of this state is the full embrace of personal responsibility.
Taking ownership of our own inner world.
Absolutely. Hawkins emphasizes that this is a hallmark of acceptance.
So we're no longer blaming others for our problems.
We're looking within.
And that often leads to an interest in practices that support inner awareness.
Like meditation and contemplation.
Spiritual and ethical considerations also become increasingly important.
They do. And individuals might find themselves drawn to religious retreats or humanitarian endeavors.
It's like the desire to grow and contribute expands.
Yeah, it does. And the world is increasingly perceived as inherently harmonious.
Any sense of disharmony is recognized as a reflection of our own internal conflicts.
Exactly. We see that the world is a mirror.
So we stop trying to change the world and start focusing on changing ourselves.
And that's where the real power lies.
Because the realization dawns that those negative feelings are our own to work through.
Right. We stop looking for external solutions.
We realize that the answer is within.
And this leads to a genuine commitment to personal growth.
To increasing self-awareness and refining the quality of our consciousness?
Absolutely. It might even spark an interest in fields like philosophy or scientific research, exploring human potential.
Or maybe a deeper dive into spiritual classics.
It's all about expanding our understanding of ourselves and the universe.
And the focus shifts from having or doing to becoming.
Yes, it's about the inner journey of transformation.
And it's not just about our own growth, but about supporting the growth of others.
It's about fulfilling our own potential and nurturing the potential of others.
And the text even connects this state of acceptance to our physical well-being.
It does. Hawkins mentions that individuals in this state often test strong in muscle testing.
Suggesting a greater resilience and immunity to negative influences.
Right. And there's often a strong commitment to health and wellness on all levels.
Physical, emotional, and mental.
Because we understand that true health encompasses all of these aspects.
And that health challenges can often stem from deeper psychological and emotional imbalances.
Leading to a greater interest in holistic approaches to healing.
And a recognition of the powerful capacity for self-healing.
Exactly. We have within us the ability to heal ourselves.
And that's incredibly empowering, isn't it?
It is. And perhaps one of the most profound aspects is how acceptance allows us to truly live in the present moment.
Free from the burdens of the past and anxieties about the future.
Yes, because once we accept our true nature and the unfolding of life,
The grip of regret and fear dissolves.
it does. Healing the past breaks the ego's tendency to project negativity onto the future.
We no longer see the future as a threat.
And by letting go of those lower energies, guilt, fear, anger, pride,
We lighten the weight of the past and clear the path ahead.
exactly, we're free to experience the present moment with clarity and openness.
With a sense of gratitude simply for being alive.
And recognizing the ephemeral nature of both the past and the future.
So, to sum it all up, this deep dive into the state of acceptance, as described by Hawkins, has revealed a truly transformative experience.
Marked by inner harmony, a profound recognition of inherent perfection, the blossoming of unconditional love, a clear perception of innocence, a release from judgment and guilt, a natural inclination towards selflessness and service, a commitment to personal responsibility, and a deep immersion in the present moment.
It's a completely different way of being in the world.
It is. And according to Hawkins, truly embracing acceptance can free us from so many of the struggles we face.
And open the door to lasting fulfillment and genuine happiness.
Exactly. It's about aligning with the natural flow of life and realizing our true potential.
And that brings us to a crucial point for you, our listener. Think about just one area of your life right now where you're experiencing strong resistance.
Where things feel difficult or frustrating.
How might consciously applying these principles of acceptance, as we've explored them today, reshape your perspective and transform your experience of that very situation?
It's a question worth pondering because it holds real potential for positive change.
It does. So we encourage you to take some time to reflect on that.
And see what shifts become possible when you choose acceptance.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.
Take care.